तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति।
Shall we read?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Anshu. Yeah.
So, negative religion. Most spiritual practitioners employ religion for mere worldly gains, use religious means to serve their personal ends, with no thought of eradicating their desires, no attempt at spiritual evolution, no idea of attaining the ultimate state of enlightenment. People in every faith go to religion just to satisfy their material, emotional, or intellectual demands. Their approach is purely utilitarian, selfish, and self centered, and that is negative in character. One class of people go to pilgrimages, conduct religious ceremonies, perform various rituals for their material well being. They pray for riches, higher status, better health, and other mundane benefits. Their motives rise no higher than that. A second class of persons seek religious asylum for emotional solace. They are the ones who are mentally disturbed, who are not able to handle their life's problems and go through sorrow and suffering. Such people approach religious avenues to ease their mental woes and gain peace. They also have utilitarian motives with no higher goal in mind. They are selfish in nature, far from being religious. People in third category pursue religion to satisfy their intellectual curiosity, to clear their doubt and confusion about the world. They consume various literature which provides them a satisfaction to their general queries. No sooner they find their intellectual solutions that their pursuit of religion ends. Their subtle intellect remains dormant. It lacks the strength or conviction to delve deeper into the quintessence of life. They have practically no spiritual urge to realize the supreme self within, attain spiritual liberation. Religion is not meant to cater to your physical, mental, and intellectual desires. It is designed to rehabilitate the inner personality, reconstruct the fallen mind and intellect. The modern mind and intellect have deteriorated to an alarming extent. They have they and they lie dilapidated in spiritual ruins. The role of religion is to pull the human race out of the ruinous state it has plunged into. The mind is bereft of all chastity. Human emotions have turned base, vulgar, violent. While the intellect has hit an all time low, thinking has lost its originality. Reasoning is no longer free and clear. The need of the day is to chasten human emotions, cultivate the art of living, strengthen the intellect, educate people on the higher values of life, regenerate their inner personality, guide them inwards to recognize the supreme reality. That calls for consistent effort in a planned course for evolution, a role that religion is meant to play. The process of true spiritual education is gradual, slow, but sure. Since its results do not show up immediately, hardly any take to it. People do not want to strive and struggle, pay the price of peace and bliss. Instead, look out for instant relief and remedy. The present religious practices the world over are far removed from spiritual education. For generations, people have become averse to spiritual study and reflection. None realizes that human beings need specific directions in life and living. All other creatures, save human, have their respective instructions built into their lives by nature, with little choice to live apart from their built-in directives. Human beings alone are left with the choice of action, either to get involved in the terrestrial or turn towards transcendental. Again, in terrestrial field, what is to be done and what not. The same dilemma prevails in the spiritual arena as well. Is one to gain true spiritual knowledge through an authentic course of study and reflection, or blindly follow the senseless rituals and ceremonies imposed by religious fanatics? People are totally lost, adhering to some blind faith, sheer superstition, or routine rituals. These are purposeless practices maintained by spiritual illiterate masses. Apart from these, two other fads have been spreading the world over in the name of religion: yoga asanas, physical exercise, and meditation. These are the viruses that have killed the spirit of religion.
Yeah. Till now, religion, the purpose, the religion is nothing but self-inquiry. All these practices, the pilgrimages, emotional solace, curiosity, all this must aid a person in maturing into the true spiritual growth, which is self-inquiry. That is positive religion. Negative religion is that where spiritual practices are done without connecting it to self-inquiry, self-realization. If connection is not made to self-inquiry and self-realization, then those practices becomes negative religion. Per se, they are not negative. What you got to understand is by themselves they are not negative. It is the ones who are. It is the ones who are practicing it turns it into negative. How do the practitioners convert it into something negative? The practitioners convert it into something negative by a, a approach of using religion again for a better life. You should understand, religion is not meant for better life. Incidentally, it gives better life. Incidentally, it makes your life better. The purpose of religion, the purpose of Vedanta is not to make your life better. By following the principles of it, it becomes better, but that is more incidental. What is the real focus? The real focus is on self-inquiry, self-realization. And there are certain qualifications. Like in sports, we have qualifying rounds, no? Institutions, we have qualifications, no? You have to qualify, you have to pass 10th to qualify to 12, you have to qualify 12 to pass 12 to qualify bachelor's, from bachelor's to post-graduation. So there is a qualification. And that qualification is nothing but the process of self-inquiry leading to self-realization. That is religion. Minus this vision of self-inquiry, self-inquiry, self-realization, anything else that is done in the name of religion ceases to be religious practice. It ceases to be a religious practice. That's what the conclusion is. Any science presupposes the appropriate qualification. Correct? That's the law. Any science presupposes. What is the presupposition in any science? You have the appropriate qualification. Religion being a science, Vedanta, spirituality being the science, what is the pre-qualification? When it comes to the worldly sciences, we understand the pre-qualification. What are the qualifications here that is necessary? What he says as the karma, bhakti, jnana yoga. Those practices, when done in the right manner, leads to self-inquiry. Self-inquiry leads to self-realization. That's the that's the sequence. So first thing that we are studying here is what? Any scientific approach presupposes a qualification. Without a qualification, it cannot be communicated. Because to understand what is being taught, you need to have some knowledge. That is the pre-qualification. So what is negative religion? People take to those qualifying practices as an end in itself. These qualifying disciplines are taken as an end in itself. What are the qualifying disciplines? The qualifying disciplines are the karma bhakti jnana, which we saw the previous one. The karma bhakti jnana is the qualifications for self-inquiry, self-inquiry leading to self-realization. Minus this, whatsoever is done in the name of karma yoga becomes a mechanical ritual. Whatever is done in the name of bhakti yoga becomes a mere emotional solace. Whatever is studied in the name of jnana yoga becomes just to satisfy the intellectual curiosity. There, the practices turns ritualistic, solace, and mere intellectual curiosity. Why? Because the connect is not made. That is negative religion. And then we'll come to the two practices, yoga and meditation. This yoga and meditation, we will read through that. We have been studying about it quite in detail now. So we can just read through those sections. Negative religion comes in the area of negative religion comes when it is in the field of missing the practices, missing the connection. What in the Bhagavad Gita he calls as Artaha Artharthi Jignasu Jnani. In the Bhagavad Gita, he calls them as Artaha Artharthi Jignasu Jnani. 4 types of people worship me, he says. The 4 types of worshippers, chapter 7. The 4 types of worshippers, where he talks about one who seeks material wealth, one who seeks emotional solace, one who just intellectual curiosity. What is intellectual curiosity? Intellectual curiosity is trying to understand everything through the intellect and derive a satisfaction from that understanding. That is intellectual curiosity. You want to understand, and that understanding gives you a satisfaction. No further pursuit happens. That is intellectual curiosity. And then comes the emotional solace. What is the emotional solace? A disturbed mind. A disturbed mind seeks some security, seeks some solace. A disturbed mind seeks some solace, seeks some kind of a security. And religion seems to provide that security. Religion seems to give that security. Though in reality, it is not Though in reality, it is not the case. It doesn't provide you with any security. To put it very simply, you have got wealth, you have got name, you have gotten fame, you got everything, but there is an insecurity. Now, what can you tell that person? You can't say add more wealth. You can't say add more. So there is the seeking solace, emotional solace. And when they seek emotional solace, something is given to satisfy them. Something is told it will protect you. Something is told to satisfy them. Mental peace. The grossest is seekers of wealth. So seekers of wealth, seekers of solace, seekers of satisfying their intellectual curiosity. All these are negative. All this is negative religion. All this is negative in character. Why it is negative in character? Because the search is still very mundane. The person is not yet qualified. The human being has not risen to the level of self-enquiry, self-realization. Still meandering at the level of wealth, solace, curiosity. That he calls as negative religion. Rehabilitating the inner personality is religion. What is rehabilitation of inner personality means? Rehabilitation of inner personality means moving into higher and higher values. In English, we have to call it as values. Sanskrit has a beautiful word, dharma. Reconstituting, rehabilitating the inner personality means the personality aligning itself with dharma. That is rehabilitating the inner personality. Then comes what is dharma? Then comes the question, what is dharma? Dharma is that which recognizes the supporter. Dharma comes from the root word dhr, means to support. So dharma is that which supports. That which supports everything is called dharma. Today, dharma is misunderstood as moral and ethical values. Please understand, dharma is not against moral and ethical values. It's not that you can do whatever you want to. It is not removing the moral and ethical values. Rising above this to see the true nature. Rising above everything to perceive the inner nature, the true nature. That is reconstituting, rehabilitating the inner personality. You come into religion and your ignorance is getting deeper. You are becoming more vulnerable to emotions. You are getting more disturbed. It means it has turned negative. You are able to follow. It means it has turned into a negative religion. If you observe, even though religion, spirituality talks about peace, calmness, shanti, and all that, a person getting into religion, you observe, they will be more intolerant. There will be more intolerant. There will be a kind of negative things around. Why? not because of religion it is happening, because we should know how to correlate it rightly. It is not because of religion, using religion for which it is not meant for. You use something for what it is not meant for, it is negative. What is it meant for? What is religion meant for? Self-inquiry, self-realization. Religion is meant for self-inquiry, self-realization. The very word self-inquiry itself says, the very word self-inquiry itself means what? It is done individually, singly. So it becomes very clear that it is an individual practice, not a collective social function. It's not a social. So religion is never a social congregation. Religion is purely an individual affair. What does an individual affair means? Enquiry. Religion gives you the courage to inquire. For inquiry, you need courage. Lot of courage is required to inquire. You got to be a rebel. You got to be an exploratory. You got to have an exploratory nature to pursue religion. That is positive religion. Others from outside may say, I'm assuming, I don't know whether anybody is saying it or not, I'm just saying. Yeah. Others outside may say, oh, sir, Arvindan, sir, you are good. As far as my family is concerned, as far as my father and mother is concerned, I am a rebel because I didn't follow even though I'm not following anything. You don't follow. So, what is the religious, what is religiosity? A rebelling. Please understand, rebel doesn't mean you go and fight with others, sir. That's what people do. They go and fight with others, pick up everybody who's right, who's wrong, and have a debate club discussion. Nariya Pattimandram they will do, and then they will write. They don't do all the people blogs. They say, I don't know what all they do. That is not rebelling. What is rebelling? Certain convictions you have about life, certain notions about life you have, you rebel against those. What are the notions that you have about life? You have some set principles, you have some set expectations, you have some set things about life. So what is spirituality means? You have the courage to question those. In that questioning lies your reconstitution. What is known as self-development, reconstituting the inner person. Any word you can use. Reconstituting the inner personality, any word you can use. But all that means is what? You are able to, you are a, you have the courage to be a rebel. Rebellion is not against something external. Rebellion is not against anything external. Rebellion is against something of your own lower nature. And why it is called rebelling? Why it is called rebelling? It's called rebelling because your mind is so convinced about a few things, you are questioning that. That ability to question is called viveka, discrimination. This ability to question is called viveka. That Viveka strengthens the inner personality. That Viveka strengthens the inner personality. A role that religion to play. Here we are using religion, Vedanta, spirituality, all synonymously. All are being used synonymously. You rebel. And you should understand, all religious persons are rebels. Who all religious persons in the true sense are rebels. You go and ask Buddha's father. Buddha's father will say Buddha is a. What will Buddha's father talk about Buddha? You will prostrate, because you are beneficiary, so you will prostrate. What will Buddha's father talk about Buddha? After 13 years, Buddha comes back. After 30, he left the kingdom in the middle of the night without telling anybody. So he comes back 13 years later. So he brings his son Rahul and tells Rahul, the son, ask him what he got for you. After 13 years, he has come. Ask him what did he get for you. The father told Buddha, even now I am ready to forgive you, he said. Even now I am ready to forgive you. Leave all this dress, leave all this ochre robe, this begging bowl, and a group of people following you. Leave all that. Even now I am ready to forgive you. Come back and take over the kingdom. Buddha said, yeah. Buddha was trying to help his father. He was so compassionate to his father, he wanted to help the father. So Buddha said, Father, don't you see the difference? The person who left the palace is not the one who has come back. Don't you see the difference? Are you able to follow what Buddha is saying? He said, don't you see that? He said, the man who left the palace is not the one who has come back. Don't you see the difference? The father said, give all this talk to the followers outside, not to me. Why? Because I know you, you are my son, full stop. I know you, you are my son. That's it. Religion, true religious person is a rebel. Has to be a rebel. In fact, rebellious nature is the spirit of inquiry itself. Negative religion is not having this spirit and merely following a set pattern and believing, hoping that that set pattern will give you some material benefit or emotional solace or satisfy your intellectual curiosity. Using it for that, he calls it as negative religion. So, do not use the rituals for one class of people, pilgrimages, conduct religious ceremonies, perform various rituals, all for a specific result. That is negative religion. In Kathopanishad, I'm just giving some examples so that you understand. Kathopanishad starts with the father performing a yajna called Vishwajit Yajna. Nachiketa's father does an yajna called Vishwajit. Vishwa means universe. Vishwa means universe. Jit means conquering. So he is doing a yajna to conquer the universe. Meaning he just wanted to become number one. That's all. What it means is he wanted to become number one. Nachiketas goes and tells his father, this is not the way it is done. Dasharatha did yajna called What is the name of the yajna that Dasharatha did? It's called Putra Kameshti. Putra plus Kama plus Ishti. Ishti means desirous. Kama, desire. Intensely desirous to have a son. Obsession to have a son. That's what it means. Putra Kameshti means obsession to have a son. He did one yajna. Putra Kameshti yajna he did. It's not that you will not get it, you will get it. Because you do the, you follow with the right action, you follow the principles of all that, you will get it. But what will happen to you as an individual? As an individual, there will not be any transformation. So in that sense, it is so negative. That's what is meant by pilgrimages, conduct religious ceremonies, solace. Another set goes for solace. Solace is seeking a quick fix, temporary way out of the mental agitations. That is solace. When you are seeking solace, you are not seeking transformation. You are not seeking solution. You are not seeking transformation. Something to give you a comfort temporarily. That's what solace is all about. That's why third day, fifth day, you will get solace. Solace becomes very painful at the third day and the fifth day. And religious practices are used to give solace. There are a million ways to find the mental solace. Of the million ways to find the mental solace, religion is not one. There are a million ways, isn't it? You can watch a movie to relax. You can go on a holiday to relax. You can have some ganja also to relax, no? Similarly, you can come for Vedanta class also, Abada, 1 hour. At least previously it was better. Nowadays it's not that beneficial also. Yeah. At least previously, sir, that 2 hours from the house at least. Now it is in the house also, it is becoming more painful now. At least previously it used to be a very good outing, isn't it? Some reason to get out of the house. Now that is also not there. You have to sit and listen to it from your house only. As it is, people in the house are saying, what is the use of going to the classes? No change in you. What is the use of going to the class? No change in you. Yeah. Not only that, whoosh, 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 you have to make everybody to those around you in the house. No. Yeah. Shankar will be sitting on the seat's edge, not knowing when the grandchildren will come in front of the camera. Yeah, that is his worry. What he said in the class, when the grandchildren will come and sit in front of the camera is that worry. So everybody has one thing like that. A solace. Religion is not a temporary solace like that. The third category is very few. Third category is very few. What is that? The intellectual curiosity. In the past, Karma Bhakti Jnana Yogas was misused a lot. And these two are never in practice. What are the two? The yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation was never in the mainstream of life. It is only Karma Bhakti Jnana. So in negative religion, people only use Karma Bhakti Jnana. Now what has happened? It is no more Karma Bhakti Jnana, it is more of yoga and meditation. More of yoga and meditation. Meditation, we are discussing it. So we will not talk a lot about meditation. Yoga means exercises, asanas, postures. A posture where movement is not required aids in concentration. Yoga is designed for that. Yoga is designed so that you can sit in a posture. And when you sit in a posture, you can forget the body. When you say you can forget the body means what? Body will not disturb it. That's called asana siddhi. So what is the purpose of yoga? The purpose of yoga is to get asana siddhi. Asana siddhi means mastering the posture. What is mastering the posture means? You sit in a posture and you can forget the presence of your body. But then it has become so much of mystical things have come into it. It is just training the body to stay still. Training the body to stay still. Why do you have to train the body to stay still? You can take care of. We have seen that, no? The three types of sorrow is one. The three sources of sorrow, the three sources of distraction, Adhyatmikam, Adi Bhautikam, Adi Daivikam. Disturbances from oneself, disturbance from the environment, disturbances from the totality, cosmic. Yoga asana takes care of one part of the disturbances created by yourself. What is the disturbance that can be created by yourself? Your body. So you can sit in a posture, train yourself to relax your muscles. You close your eyes, you inspect the body, relax your muscles and everything. You train yourself into it. After a while, you will not be floating and all. It's not that you will start floating, but you will actually start feeling that you are floating because it has become so light. It aids concentration. Are you able to follow? Yogasanas. And yogasana belongs to a thing called tantra. Tantra itself means a trick, a technique. ரொம்ப தந்திரமா வேலை பார்க்குறாங்க சார்னு என்ன அர்த்தம் தமிழ்ல? ஆ? ரொம்ப தந்திரமா வேலை பார்க்குறேன்னு அதை இங்கிலீஷ்ல how do you say that? மனோகர் எப்படி சொல்லுவீங்க அதை? அவர் தான் ஸ்காலர். How do you say that? Tantra means that. In Tamil we call it as tantram. In English, in Sanskrit it's called as tantra. What is that? It's a kind of a trick. It's a kind of a trick, that's all. You just, some practices you do, and then you are able to sit, focus. That's all it means. It's not that yoga is going to help you to focus. It removes one disturbance. What is the disturbance? Bodily disturbances and breathing disturbances are taken care. Yogasanas. Tantramன்றதுக்கு இங்கிலீஷ்ல என்ன? I'm still waiting for it. Manohar. If you understand that, you know what tantra means. Because it is one and the same thing. A tool. I'm sure has typed it's a tool. A trick. Something that can be achieved through magic, trick. அதான் ட்ரிக் தான், கரெக்ட். ஐ நோ, ட்ரிக் தான். You are tricking the body to feel light, training it. Otherwise, there is a pain here, there is a pain there, there is a pressure sitting and all that. So, what is happening? Yogasana is not a spiritual practice. Karma, bhakti, jnana are spiritual practices. Yogasana is for the body. When you become very physical in nature, when you become physical in nature, exercises are more for a person who's physical. Physical means what? Attention on the body all the time. Attention on body all the time. Yogasanas seems to make them believe that they are doing something holy. There's nothing holy in it. It is a physical exercise. Correct. Knack. Correct. It's a knack. It's a way. There is something to it. So adan tandram adan. It's a knack. Correct. Spiritual knowledge is not to use all this for materialistic purposes. That's what it means. I have said this any number of times, and how many ever times you say it, it's very, very meaningful. Like Ramana Maharishi said, you will come to a wise man and you will not know what to ask. You will come to a wise person and you will not know what to ask. In fact, you will ask all the irrelevant. All the irrelevant. Why you ask all the relevant? Because to you it is very relevant. That is why you ask. Otherwise, why will you? To you it is so relevant. That is negative in approach. And then the two practices of yoga asanas and meditation. And we'll just read those portions so that we'll finish this section. You can see your notes also. Yes. These two faddish practices.
These two faddish practices are simple and easy for teachers to communicate and masses to follow. That makes them even more popular. In sheer ignorance, people take to these practices through hereditary or peer pressure. They lack the intellect to steer themselves away from these pressures and observe a disciplined, methodic procedure for the spiritual evolution. Yoga has a worldwide market today. It has been reduced to mere asanas, physical postures, and pranayama, breathing techniques. These are good exercises which tune up the physical body, no more. But people are led to believe that they are mystical, divine, and the ignorant have accepted yoga asanas and pranayama as a spiritual course. This spiritual merchandise has earned the promoters wealth, name, and fame, while leaving the followers in confusion and chaos. Yoga exercises are gross. They can no doubt shape the gross body, but not the subtle body. The subtle body consists of mind and intellect. You could build your physical structure through asanas and pranayama, but in no way develop your inner personality. The gross can never control the subtle. It is the law. The second fad sweeping the human race is meditation. Meditation has become the bestseller in the world today. Self-appointed religious heads are hawking meditation like Swiss watches and Japanese cars. It has turned into a multi-million-dollar business. The innocent masses do not know what they are buying. They are swept away by publicity campaign, unaware of the adverse results that meditation can bring about to ill-prepared minds cluttered with desires. Meditation is specialized training carefully administered to advanced spiritual practitioners. Yet, millions flock to meditation halls without a clue of what it is and consequences it leads them to. A simple reason for its mass appeal is the initial solace it gives to a novice. It is usually people suffering from stress and strain that take to meditation. A mind with considerable mental agitation is suddenly brought to a thought of divinity. The mind experiences a certain solace, a temporary feeling of peace, which is comforting. As a result, one is led to believe that meditation can directly bring about peace and bliss. Therefore, the practitioner plunges into it more seriously and finds himself losing his mental equilibrium. He gradually becomes more agitated, frustrated in life. People realize where the mistake lies. Some believe that they are not putting in adequate effort. They even try harder and cause themselves greater harm. The instant effect of peace caused by meditation can be explained through a common phenomena experienced by people. A metropolitan businessman is generally infested with worry and anxiety. His mind is agitated, with no peace and harmony. He spends sleepless nights in his luxurious mansion. On one rare occasion, he joins his family for a picnic to the woods. The wife is organizing a meal. The children are chasing butterflies. The man rests his head on a protruding root of a tree and falls off to sleep. The very same man who could not sleep on a cushioned mattress in his air conditioned bedroom. The reason for this phenomena is that the environment lends a temporary charm to the disturbed mind. But the effect of the environmental peace does not last long. If, however, he repeats his visits to the same place, he will lose that temporary influence. He will sleep no more. On the contrary, his mind becomes more agitated, frustrated, without the luxury of his home. The effect of meditation on a beginner is just the same. A mind congested with thoughts, desires, worries, and anxieties is drawn to one line of thought. It is removed from the congestion of thoughts for those moments. It experiences a temporary peace. This practice thus lends the charm to an agitated mind. That feeling is lost with repeated attempts at meditation. Some understand its futility and drop the practice, but the ignoramuses are led to believe that the instant relief is a permanent transformation of their personality. They pursue doggedly only to be disappointed and frustrated in their lives. Thus, the general trend everywhere is to abuse religion rather than use it for redemption of humanity. The unauthentic superstitious belief practices in the name of religion has taken roots because of temporary solace they produce. People seem content with the ephemeral effects of religion. They do not realize with the effect wearing away, their old nature of stress and strain returns. This resembles a strange phenomena which occurs in Himalayan ranges year after year. In winters, when it is biting cold, snakes become cold stricken. A snake lies coiled as if lifeless. For all purpose, it appears dead. People handle it as a rope. The same snake, with a little warmth, stretches itself. It regains its nature. Similarly, the wrong ways of religion may subdue the desires and ego for a while. But the moment the environment and situation turns conducive, the same desires and ego rise again to the surface. Hence, the true spiritual way of life is to exterminate the desires. not just subdue them. An extermination of desires alone unveils the Supreme Self.
The true practices, as we saw, the asanas and the meditation. Yoga is the physical exercise. Meditation brings a temporary stoppage of thoughts. And the first few attempts where the stoppage of thoughts happens, it is very elevating, it is very peaceful. In fact, you really follow it, you will fall off to sleep. If you have been, I have asked, very many people have been to those sessions. Yeah. இங்க கூட இருக்கிறாங்க அவங்க. Yeah, they are sitting here also. You don't follow the instruction, just pretend as though you are following the instructions. After the few minutes, you open the eyes and see what is happening around you. Everybody would have fallen off to sleep. அதுக்கு ஒரு பேர் வேற, யோக நித்ரா. Sleep, that's all. அது என்ன யோகா sleep. You are sleeping, that's it. Clear. Every day you are sleeping. What is yoga sleep? You can, yeah, these are all the things that goes on. Yeah. Vishnu is in yoga nidra, no sir. No, this thing as far as that is in relation to yoga, asanas, and pranayama, etc. Then comes meditation, which is what we are discussing now. What is meditation? Meditation is an awareness, not a thought. Meditation is not a thought, it's an awareness. When you lose sight of the awareness, thought starts manifesting. That is meditation. When you lose sight of that awareness, thought starts manifesting. And the thoughts are so powerful that it makes you forget. The thoughts are so powerful that it carries the attention along with it. The thoughts that manifest in your own self are so powerful, it carries the attention with it. Like in the 67th, 68th verse of chapter 2, he says, it carries the intellect, the mind, the senses, all are carried away, he says. All are carried away. In the Siddha Prajna portion of 67, chapter 2. What is meditation? Meditation is an awareness, objectless awareness. It is not the absence of an object. Awareness that doesn't require an object. That's meditation. And these two are gaining practices, or gaining in the name of religion. These two are sold. Along with these two, you can add one more thing also. Yeah. Along with these two, you can add one more: healing. The number of healers in the world seems to be more than the number of sick people. Just as the gurus are plenty, not a single disciple to be found, no? You know that, no? Ganesh, correct, na? The gurus are there in plenty. There is not one single student. To be a student is a very rare. Gurus are available in plenty. Similarly, what is happening in the name of religion? Negative religion, we are discussing all this. We are not criticizing anybody. We are not attacking anybody. We are not making fun of anybody. Please understand that. We don't do that in that spirit at all. It is only an understanding how it doesn't help in your growth. That's what you got to understand. After making a mockery of everybody, we are saying this, no? Asanas, pranayama, healing, karma bhakti yoga for arthaha, artharthi, jignasu, all combined is called negative religion. Why it is called negative religion? Elimination of desires doesn't happen. In all these practices, the human being becomes like a cold-stricken snake. Ramatirtha gives this example. He says, during the winter times, the snake coils himself into a ball and the boys plays with those balls. They kick around, they play with those balls. The moment the sun starts coming up and when the snakes start stretching, all the boys will run away. Everybody answer. It's a cold-stricken snake. Negative religion makes you a cold-stricken snake. Meaning, all the negativities just goes into unmanifest form, not realizing that it has just gotten into unmanifest form and any moment it will manifest. The practitioner starts believing that he has attained growth. You know that there is no growth because the snake raises its head again and again. The snake raises its head again and again and again. Very symbolic of Krishna conquering that 1,000-headed snake. You know, Krishna is dancing, no? As a young boy, there was the lake near the town and infested with the deadly snake. And one of his friends got caught. Krishna dived into the lake. And what is the name of that snake? The name of the snake is called Kalinga. And he was dancing on that. So, as he steps on one head, the other head rises up. And then he jumps onto that, subdues that. By the time he subdues that, the third head rises. Positive religion is that. Positive religion is when the desires manifest, the knowledge makes them toothless. Knowledge and understanding makes them toothless, powerless. When they become powerless, it stops disturbing you. A powerless desire, toothless desire disappears, just vanishes. Just disappears because it's born of imagination, no? Desires is called kalpana. Kalpana means born of imagination. When you make it, when you understand it rightly, what happens? The desires become toothless, powerless. When the desires thus become toothless and powerless, there is this clarity. What is the clarity? The proper use of religion. The proper use of religion. So we discussed positive religion and then we discussed negative religion. And then next week there is one small topic which is the impediments in the spiritual path. We will read through that and then we will move on to the important lesson, the law of causation, the law of karma. Very two important lessons is one is the law of causation and another is the theory of perception. We'll do both we'll do both. So next week we'll continue with this impediments in the spiritual path. We'll quickly finish that and then we will move on to, because I'm also in a hurry to come to the law of karma. Positive religion, negative religion and all, we know that. So we come on to the law of karma, there is more to the real understanding. The real purpose of religion is to understand some laws, some principles. That is called the law of causation, the law of karma. With this, we conclude the session for today and we continue with impediments in the spiritual path next session.